Hello, we are live. Thank you for joining us. We were just having a conversation, nothing too heavy, just about subatomic particles and that kind of thing. So Robin's just
About
finished
this
the
book
book.
right there, Becoming Supernatural.
Yeah, that's it. He's gonna. So Robin will be supernatural for this time next week. I haven't read it yet, so I'm going to be a few steps behind him. So, but thank you to everybody for joining us. We've got an interesting night coming up, which we've spent so much time rehearsing, haven't we, Robin?
I have read. It's good.
Yeah, so you know what, we are literally winging it tonight. Lena's not with us, unfortunately, tonight. She's unable to make it. She's traveling. International super spy and lady of mystery is traveling, so yeah, she can't be here. So hi Lena, for when you come back, we're missing you already. Yeah, so I'll do a quick intro. Please like and subscribe, and if you're new here, I'm Gavin Stone, former civil servant for the British Ministry of Defence. I've worked as a contractor and operative in the security and intelligence industry for around about 20 years on and off. Body language and combined communication and statement analysis expert, psychologist, and also author. There we go. That's my new. Yeah, it was going so. In my new debut novel,
Gavin write books.
Yeah, let's just leave it at that. And for those of you who don't know, the famous Robin, here you are, Robin. Over to you.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Robin Dreeke, former spy recruiter, FBI behavioral guy, ran our behavioral program for years, author, speaker, coach, all that stuff, and podcaster with the Forged by Trust podcast.
Look at that.
And I see the daughter.
Yeah, delivery of a cup of tea. Right, we are live on the air. Off you go, get yourself to bed. Thank you, sweetheart. Off you go. Love you too. Good night. Wow.
Love realism.
He's 2 minutes late. What can I say? That's it. We'll have to find a suitable punishment. Bless her. So good old British cup of tea.
Oh yeah, and Brian says Robin's now a TV person. Yeah, and I they have me.
Oh yeah.
I'm a counterintelligence guy. It's where I spent my entire career. Yet they keep calling me on news shows here in the U.S. for all the murders we've had. So I'm consulting on murders. So because of that, I've read even more books on abnormal psych and murders as well.
I wonder how many people sit in the homicide department watching you on the television. Go, why have they called him again? They've got my number.
Well, I do the same thing. It's interesting having done a number of these now where you can see how they put the panels together and they see how they put their guest list together, basically how they're trying to balance their guests to grab an audience. And so it's been interesting. It's fine, but it's because I always comment on the human behavior because that's my background. I comment on the human behavior side. I comment on origins. I comment on motivations of all human beings and survivors and that kind of stuff. So, and also law enforcement, how they conduct investigations and things like that. So pretty light lifting. It's dark stuff. No doubt. There's been so much in the press recently over here.
Well, yeah. And of course you helps being as photogenic as you are. That's always an added bonus. So I always said I had a face for radio. You can see the questions where you are, the chat where you are.
Yep,
yeah?
that's why I got you minimized. So I got the questions too.
I am an absolute nightmare for not keeping my eye on them, and they'll be buzzing away in the background, and I'm gassing away.
It's so funny. We did this last week, and so as everyone that watches the podcast or listens to it knows, I do all I can to be deeply present, which means I don't typically look at anything or listen to anything except the person speaking. But I'll try to do a better job tonight of glancing over because I actually have them open tonight because Lena's not here. She's normally doing that because our minds can only focus on one thing at a time. And so I try never to multitask. I try to really focus on the present. I focus on the individual and I focus on the words being spoken so I can really understand. Because that's what it all comes down to. But tonight's topic I thought was interesting that we came up with because I've never, so we're going to talk about undercover operations. And I've done a decent number of it inside the FBI. And it's funny, it only came up, I thought of it because I was asked about it on a podcast that I was on not too long ago. Oh, let me put my stuff on silence as well. My focus. do not disturb. And so I thought it'd be interesting to talk about because I have had some fascinating experiences doing undercover work in the world of spies. So I thought people might get a kick out of it. It's nothing more than pure entertainment, really.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm really interested myself. So, I mean, have you got like a kind of order you want to talk to these about, or are you open to kind of like when and where was your first one, or was it one specific that kind of was a bit?
So if anyone, so we'll look at the chat. We can, as I thought we could ask you about yours, because I know you did a lot of different covert type things, whether you classified them undercover or not, covert ops. And when it comes to mine, I figured we can kind of start with my origin story in my first couple years in the FBI and the New York field office in Manhattan, about how I got started doing it, because it was I did some really stupid stuff.
Yeah. Oh yes. Stupid is good. I'm gonna use that dreaded word fun. Stupid can be fun. So do you know how conscientious since last week I've become of using the word fun? So
It's a great word. Fun,
I
exciting,
know.
exhilarating.
Oh no. So the thing is I've noticed whilst using it always tends to be towards the things that shouldn't be done are also associated with the fun. Oh, that's a really bad thing to do, but it'd be fun. Oh, I know I shouldn't do this, but it'd be fun. And it's almost like it's become a hall pass for doing something wrong. So I've got to be really careful. So, but yeah. Please let us know a little bit about Manhattan. I'm itching to know a little bit about
Sure.
it.
So, and so my fun was I didn't do things for fun. I've always been motivated by mission. And, when I was younger and I wanted to go to the Naval Academy, I wanted to become an astronaut and things. I wound up going to the Marine Corps instead. And then I came in the FBI. My thing was I was ingrained, especially inside the Marine Corps, was mission. And when I got to the New York field office after new agent training, and I signed Lower Manhattan, 26 Federal Plaza, and I worked in the world of counterintelligence. I was assigned to work against the Russian military intelligence and recruit them as spies. And they're diplomats at the United Nations. And this is a world I had no idea that existed. And anyway, when I get assigned to my squad in New York, and they say, okay, you have to recruit spies, go. It's a very challenging thing when you are first focused, because one of the greatest challenges you have is access, because they're diplomats, they're under diplomatic cover. You as FBI overtly are illegal to make an initial approach. And besides, if you did, they'd assume that you're intelligence anyway and never have contact with you again. So the trick always was to either surround them with confidential human sources or snitches or whatever anyone wants to call them. We call them confidential human sources. So you could gain information about these individuals, so you could actually see what their challenges, priorities, and pain points are. So you could see if they might be interested in you being a resource in their life or solving them, hence recruitment. It's a real quick layman's terms of it. But in essence, that's really what it was. And when you couldn't get a confidential human source around someone, you have to up what we call the technique, the sophistication of the technique, because you always want to start with the lowest, easiest, simplest ones first, because they're low impact, both politically, financially, and all these other things, and escalate them. And one of the most advanced, sophisticated techniques you can use is the undercover technique, because it requires an agent, an FBI agent, if you're with the FBI, to be an undercover capacity, basically lying and faking who you are to someone who is trained to sniff that out. And so I remember I got assigned my squad, and it's probably around October, November of this year. I'm going to protect some years here just because these are real ops I'm talking about. Yeah. But it was interesting because we had other squads that did other priority targets, like China is one of them. And so we had a group that was over there, and I had heard, because I'm trying to get access to one of my intelligence officers. I'm trying to get people around him in front of him, and I was failing because I couldn't, and it's a challenge. And so I'd heard that the Chinese squad, the guys that worked against China, were going to that they had undercovers on this squad. I said, oh, that undercovers sound really interesting. That's cool. So I go over there, across the same floor, and I go over there and said, hey, guys, my name's Robin. I have way too much energy. I want to do all this crazy stuff, and I only have a couple months in the bureau, but tell me about what you do. And Can you imagine me doing that? And so the senior guy there says, hey, well, we got a few of us that do this undercover thing. Matter of fact, we have what's called a Group 1 undercover, which means it's funded by the FBI, the certifications and all these things. And we're about to go, it's coming up Christmas time, and the Chinese mission to the United Nations has its annual Christmas party every year. And they said, they never check invites. So you should just crash the party and show up. I was like, really? Okay. And I made up a bunch of my fake business cards put a fake name on it. I put my Marine Corps lapel pin on my sports jacket, and I literally walked in the front door. I did not coordinate or deconflict with anyone. No one ever told me I had to do that. I had a senior guy says, you ought to just show up. So I just literally showed up. So my first undercover operation was literally walking in the front door of the Chinese mission to the United Nations at a party saying, hey, here I am. I'm here to meet spies. And I did. The funniest thing was I'm full of confidence, way too confident. And I'm walking around pretending I'm someone else. And I see some guys from the Chinese squad there that some were in undercover capacity and a few there were overtly as official liaison. And they see me walking in and they didn't know what the hell to think because I didn't coordinate with anyone. They're like, what's this guy doing? Is he a spy? Is he working for I totally was blowing people's minds because I literally broke the rules I didn't even know existed to do this. So that was my first foray into to undercover work. Was I literally said I'm in, and I actually met my targets, a few of them, and a few of the Chinese ones as well. Formed a couple of relationships that lasted until I got transferred out of there. Made a few pitches from it. It was quite the hoot, but it set me on a course of it was a great technique. It was challenging because you had to be someone that you weren't, and you had to create a relationship of trust based on lack of trust because you're totally faking it.
Yeah.
And so it was a great learning moment. And from there, I started my own Group 1 operation and, funding and backstopping it. And so I got myself into the undercover because we were only allowed to have a certain number of meetings in an undercover capacity before we were told to stop because of our own internal rules and regulations. And so I was able to get to a certain point, and then you had to stop, and then you had to transition either to someone else. You had to pitch. There's all these, admin logistics things you had to do. But I was able to get myself to our undercover certification school. It was a 2-week-long school where you are psychologically exhausted. Basically, you're existing as a different human being for 2 weeks, going through all kinds of different scenarios, training as well as scenarios. And the scenarios were rough because what they did was they combined both the folks that were counterintelligence like me and the criminal guys that did organized crime. They did white supremacy. They did all that stuff, and they put us all in the same group. And for 2 weeks, you might have done only 1 or 2 counterintelligence scenarios or terrorism scenarios. And the rest of the time, you're learning how to be an undercover against the mob. And I mean, they had all the kind of scenarios where I literally had shotguns pointed at my heads, threatening me to snort cocaine and take prostitutes and everything else as what do you do? And so it was 2 weeks of a lot of mental exhaustion. I remember I slept for about 3 days straight after that one. So that was my foray to kind of kickstart it all.
So, I mean, because I remember for me, a lot of the stuff, there was also really little stuff. Quick hi to everybody. Brian, Jim, I see Parry's here, John's here, Erin's here. We got remembers back as well. Got the great crowd here, and good to see you all back. So, there's probably a couple of names I've missed as well. I'm sorry if I've missed you, but hi everybody, and thanks for coming. So yeah, with me, I remember a lot of the time it was little things that I remember during training. One of the things I was told is to always keep your cover as close or as parallel to your own life as possible. So I mean, I remember at the time, I think one of the aliases I used the name Kevin. I'm not going to say the second name for obvious reasons. Right. And it was purely because Kevin and Gavin just sounded so similar that could even be mistaken. And I naturally respond to it. I remember being at an airport once, the very first time I was using a particular cover name that was different to mine. And the guy was calling me, he was like, 6, 7 feet away from me. He was calling me, and I was there reading or doing something, and it didn't register with me.
Right.
And by the time I looked around, he's like, "Dude, do you need to lip read or what?" And I was like, and I hadn't got used to being, or used to responding to that name. So there was a big learning curve. So they say keep everything. Don't have these kind of crazy out there kind of covers there where you went to school in Zimbabwe and you paraglide in your spare time. If you don't paraglide in your spare time and you didn't go to school in Zimbabwe, because if at some point you will get caught. In fact, funnily enough, there's a lady I know from MI5, and she used to go to a lot of these diplomatic functions. I'm trying to be very careful with what I say here now. Anyway, when you get told to like pick a career as your cover career, you're generally told pick something so mundane, so boring, so your business card people look and go, ugh, and that way nobody asks any questions. What do you do for a living? I'm X, and they go, nice shoes. And so you want something that's not going to raise any eyebrows or anything else. Anyway, she used to say her like kind of default thing. She used to say, I work for one of the big makeup manufacturers and I source chemicals that they need to make the cosmetics, right? And for years, everybody was like, "Oh, that sounds interesting." And then that's it, because it was an area that nobody knew anything about, especially in the embassy. Nobody knew anything about this kind of thing.
Right.
I mean, what do you say to that? I mean, all right, yeah, I had a good deal on some cobalt not so long back, or so it kind of killed the career conversation, and they could move on to more important things and more important like kind of topics that they wanted to cover. So it was fantastic until it backfired one day, really, really huge. When she walked in, I was introducing herself to different guests. And this lady said, "So what do you do?" And she said, "Oh, I source chemicals for a large cosmetics company." And this lady turned around and went, "Oh, me too. I work for Max Factor." And her face just dropped like, "Ugh." She said, and the panic must have been evident, and she said, and I was like, kind of, I got to go. Something's just dawned on me, and kind of couldn't get out there quick enough. She said, because I knew nothing about chemicals, nothing about makeup, nothing about any of the
Right.
other than putting it on her face. She knew nothing about how it all worked. So yeah, it was, it was a very, very close call, and she therefore ended up having to decide a new career path for her cover. So really, really interesting. And even though it's not my story, I remember hearing it and thinking, during my time in training, that's something I've got to be very, very aware of.
Yeah, you definitely. I learned on the first deep cover operation I did. I thought I was going to cut out my family. I'm not going to have kids. I'm not going to have a wife. I'm going to completely cut that out. But what was really fascinating was that if you because at the time my kids were small, they were barely in elementary school. This was years and years ago, and I remember the first time I sat down with an intelligence officer.
Where we're going with this.
Yeah, I had nothing to talk about.
Yep.
Like, my entire life was my kids and my family. I literally had nothing. And so at that point, I shifted it from there on that I'm married but separated and I have 2 kids.
Yeah.
So it then gave me something to talk about. That was an interesting one. Yeah, there's a lot of funny stories. When it came to professions, I tested a lot of different ones, and that old adage, you are what you can carry off, really applied. And so when it comes to professions that I found no one cared about and were really boring and people glaze over, insurance. That was one that said, I sell insurance, and woof, right away, people don't care.
Yeah.
Other than that, I was always testing what would be a profession that would gravitate people towards you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
I have been a professional athlete. I have been a lawyer. I've been a pseudo movie star. I've literally done a lot of different ones. Not one of them was more attractive than any other except one.
Go on.
So my mother graduated from NYU Film School. She got her she did her grad work there. And so I have an NYU film baseball hat. And I remember I took it with me as a prop one time on a case. I went down to Miami and I said, let me try this one. And so I went down, I'm sitting at a lounge in Miami, in between operations and whatnot. And someone's sitting down next to me. And they said, so what do you do? And I said, I'm a casting director for a reality show. I'm down here looking for new contestants.
Yeah, I had a feeling this way. Oh, the words I was going to say was actually talent scout.
Yep.
But yeah.
Casting director for reality. That really got the interest up of everyone around me.
Yeah. Well, see, I found if you say that there's a few you can go with. One is a marketing company. Because currently marketing companies are just springing up all over the place. At one point, it was consultant until consultants become associated with former spies going to work as a consultant for security agency. Yeah, I'm going to put that on display. And then the other one is a printing company.
Yeah. And actually, and that's that's what you do. You take things from your real life, as I did a lot more of this. You take a hobby that might be this much interest and you build it into much more. It's and I know Perry knows this as a great actor. It's method acting. You literally embrace these smaller aspects of yourself and you bring them out. I remember one time I was, as a cover, my backstory was I was a photographer. I was into photography in New York. Oh, matter of fact, I'll show you.
Hey, this will be good.
This is the I Love Me folder. So at one of the things I was doing, this was like 20 years ago in New York, I was claiming to be a photographer. And so in order to do that, I had to take photographs. I'm going to show you some of the photographs I used as my cover.
Well, hey, this will be good.
So, and these are going to be, so this was taken in a lake, reflective lake in New York. Right after 9/11. This is like a couple of weeks after 9/11 in New York. I'm going to show everyone something really profound that made a big difference in my life. Here's the George Washington Bridge on my commute in every day.
Wow, look at that.
So I was in New York during 9/11, as some people know. Here's my kids growing up. Here's my son. And
that's it.
I was...
Somebody's sitting there with a notepad and pen right now. You know that, right?
That's all right. Where is that one picture? Oh, tell me I don't have it. Oh, I have it somewhere else. Oh no. Oh, maybe it's in the front part. So I have a picture of the World Trade Center, the lights, the first time the lights went up for honoring, because I was there in New York during 9/11, and I was there the first time they put the Twin Tower lights up. On my way home, and I got a great shot through the fog of them beaming into the... can't believe I don't have it. Anyway, so yeah, I'll find it before the end of this or the next time. So yeah, so that's one thing I did. In order to do that, you have to do that.
If you find it, can you put it in the photos or post it in TCG Tribe?
Oh yeah, it's a good idea.
To see. It'd be lovely for them to see that.
Absolutely, that's a great idea. Can't believe I didn't find it. This is my folder for it. I must have used it. Oh, you know what I did?
Ooh, we might have it. So, guys, if we might have it here.
See what questions we got.
If we don't have it here, please check out TCG.
Got it.
Here we go. Hey.
So this is kind of neat, because these are what I was using in New York at the time. So the time span I was there. This is our office at 26 Federal Plaza is like 5 blocks from Ground Zero. That's where I was on 9/11. And this is a shot of the sun setting on 9/11 on Broadway, looking west as the sun setting. That is the Trade Center where it was. That's 7 World Trade Center right there.
Wow, look at that.
This is the first time the lights were ever shown.
Oh, wow.
The very first night. That's the West Side Highway looking south as I was commuting home that day.
Wow, that's awesome. Absolutely amazing.
This is, and I know people have seen other shots. This was actually mine, taken with my instant camera.
Well, yeah.
Yep.
Bloody hell.
So there you go. That was so yeah. I was claiming to be a photographer. That's how I did it.
Yeah,
things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, it was. I remember, like, kind of just when I visited Ground Zero, it was just
And for those who haven't seen it, I have showed it before. Understand that's a piece of glass from the World Trade Center.
Oh wow! Wow! I think you did show that
Yeah.
before. I'm not, yeah, you might have done, but yeah, that's how cool is that? So wow, just what an experience! And now it's all underground. Now it's completely different.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and so it's for those that, as I saw Helen post, yeah, the camera's screwing up the photos a little bit. I'll put them on the TCG Tribe site.
Yeah, that'd be lovely. Yeah, it'd be nice
Cool.
to see.
Yeah, it's what you do. You take an element of who you are and you accentuate it into everything that you are. And then you have to have experience, have some reps behind it. So if you are called on, you can act in it and actually be those things. So I actually had a portfolio that I would carry around with me of the photos I would do.
Yeah, I can see why that would be advantageous. So,
It's fun.
I mean, photography was something that I had to brush up on really quick. Obviously, in the world I was working in, we had to use all different types of lenses and things, and for some of the photos we had to take. So, for me, I was never a professional photographer. I was an aspiring amateur photographer that wanted to know more. And but now these days. I mean, so back then, using an SLR, way before digital XLRs, when we had
This was a 3.56 megapixel Canon digital camera was one of the first, and that was that's when digital SLRs were first coming out. So I did that. That's like 2001, obviously, is when I was doing those.
Oh yeah, and of course now, I mean, everybody carries a camera now, and the way technology has advanced. I mean, my life would have been so much easier, with drones and phones and the things that are available now publicly, that anybody can just buy off eBay or whatever. And whoa, my life would have, as an investigator, as an intelligence gatherer, working in security, would have just been so much more simple if I'd have had access to that back then.
More fun as things as long as we're sharing more. So the Chinese intelligence officer I had met that first night, he gave me this Christmas gift the first year. It's a coin.
Oh wow! Look at that.
And it actually it's very nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
There we go. Little microchip inside, recording everything you've done from that day onwards.
Stuff.
Yeah. Do you know what I had? Yeah, I'll show you what I had, and I'll keep this on my desk to this day because it's of sentimental value. I had this, right? Which for most people would just look at it and think, why on earth have you got a big old scrap bolt on your desk? And the reason being is it's actually a reverse thread.
Concealment device.
We used these back in the day when we were doing dead drops.
Yep.
And you
concealment device.
Your bits and pieces in there. You could put your note in there. You could put your encrypted code in there. And not only is it a reverse seal, but a reverse thread. So therefore, anybody who tries to unscrew it wouldn't be able to, because they wouldn't think of going the opposite way to what it is. Looks like any other, and it's the weight of what it should be, or feels like it's the weight of what it should be. And you've obviously got that rubber grommet in the top, which keeps it watertight as well. So that you can kind of put your note in that and leave it somewhere obscure, mark your DLB. And then the person or myself would come and pick it up and have the information that we needed. So that was the technology. That was the height of our technology when, but it worked.
Still using it though too. When we were there, I mean, we serviced dead drops all the time that were being controlled. Our double agent operations, fake rocks all the time. Yeah. Hot spots up there. Want to take a few questions?
Yeah, let's go for it. Yeah,
let's see. Let's go through. Thanks, Sam. Let's see if I miss anything. Gavin, did you use a male stripper once?
No, I wasn't a male stripper, obviously.
Although, so there is a story that I had. So this is, oh my gosh, this one's so bad. I'll leave the actual countries out of it because it's too revealing. So I was doing an undercover operation where we're using backstopping, where basically I was selling a form of a book. And my whole thing was I was going to sell this one item to all the different embassies, missions to the United Nations for dignitaries and guests that were coming in. So I was talking to their trade reps and their intelligence, whoever I'd talk to sell my product. One of them happened to be a female diplomat from another country.
Mhm.
And she was their trade representative or something like that. And she said, hey, let's get together and you can tell me about what it is you're trying to sell. And so we go out to a business dinner where I'm telling her about this product and service, that I'm selling, representing as an undercover, because she had access to my intelligence officers that I was trying to get.
Mhm.
And around 8 o'clock at night, is when we finished up, and I said, all right, so thank you very much. Let me know what you want to do. And she goes, well, let's move on to the next place. And I was like, no, I thought we were going home. And so needless to say, she was hammering some adult beverages pretty seriously. And so we wound up going to another location, and where she continued to hammer those things. And this is where the undercover training kicks in, because they always train you, but this is for like the criminal guys working the criminal work where you get propositioned or things like this. She got so obliterated, and she is a diplomat, that she made some pretty fascinating propositions to me that I was totally unprepared for. I was accused of not being the type of orientation that I was, because I was denied turning her down. But then the funniest thing was, though, she fell off the bar stool. I then had to carry her back to her vehicle. And I'll never forget, she tells me that, as I said, I'm going to have to drive you home. Meanwhile, I wasn't equipped for this. I mean, it was like in the middle. I mean, and she lived way outside New York City. And so I pile her into her diplomatic vehicle. And I then get in the diplomatic vehicle and I start driving her home. I'm rifling through her purse looking for, because she's passed out at this point. And before she's puking out the door. And I'm rifling through her purse looking for ID to find out where she lives. And I call my good friend, matter of fact, in the books, his name is Jesse Thorne. I just had dinner with him last night. And I said, I need some help because I'm going to need a ride back home tonight. He goes, where are you? And I go, I'm still, because he was my handling agent. He goes, where are you? And I said, well, I'm still with her. And she goes, is she wearing clothes? I said, yeah, she's wearing clothes. Oh my God. It was just such a funny nightmare story. And so I shovel her into her apartment. And I started taking pictures of everything because I had that little camera with me. Oh my gosh. That was probably the craziest thing I ever got to do, in the sense of you can't script that one. And boy, the funny emails I got from her the next day being embarrassed. That was funny, but never compromised myself or my family, no doubt.
Yeah, fair play. Yeah, good call.
Anyway, sorry, I digressed there. So let's see. Yes, Brian, very familiar with the Tribeca area. Let's see. I saw one from Perry earlier. I wanted to make sure I got those. Thanks, John, for saying that about the photos. Yes, method acting can be dangerous.
Yeah, ask Alec Baldwin.
Yes, I would make a great scammer. Yeah, John Johnson, my son and I often say that if we were shysters on the street, we'd do a great job.
What was the first thing that you said? Okay, so here's one that's just I've just spotted off John Johnson.
Okay.
There you go. I'll send that over to you first, Robin.
Okay. What's the first thing you say to let a spy know that you're interested in recruiting him or her, and how do you know when to approach?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're working, the first thing you're always testing, it kind of depends on what kind of spy there. If you're working against a traditional intelligence officer who's under diplomatic cover at a diplomatic establishment, the number one thing they're not allowed to do is have outside employment. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times what we would do is either through ourselves as an undercover capacity or through a third party, whether a lot of times a confidential human source, we would gauge their willingness to break rules and to solve pain points and problems by asking a simple question or posing opportunities where, hey, I have a friend of mine that's doing a lot of research for your sector of the world and looking for investors on the ground for some ground truth. If you're interested in making a little cash on the side, just for giving some innocuous ground truth because you have family and friends there, let me know and I can set you up. Mm-hmm. And if they're willing to tinker a little bit with making some cash on the side for providing information, that's the first sign. That is a very typical approach we'd use, either through ourselves or another third party.
Yeah, I like this one. In a word, no.
Believe people when you say you are a spy. Do people believe you when you say you are a spy? I never say I'm a spy.
No.
I was a spy catcher.
In this world, so when you've worked with people and you've worked in the industry with these people and they know you have, then it's great. But we live in a world. I got friends who I've known for years, who have openly stated on social media saying, I don't believe what that you did this. And I'm thinking, well, it's not like I'd actually stick a billboard outside my house saying, "Hey guys, just in case you're interested, this is what I do." That would kind of defeat the object. So you do have to keep it very quiet. For me, I actually spent, even though I was on the books of the MOD for a while, I actually spent most of my life as a civilian contractor. So for people, there's several different ways this can be done, either through a broker or whatever else. But it's not unusual for the likes of the CIA or MI6 to go to there. So the CIA, if they're operating in a foreign country, they won't always operate from the embassy or the mission or whatever you want to call it, the consulate. Sometimes they will have a place of operations, which is usually referred to as a castle. And they will operate from that castle and like an operating base to run things, depending on what they're doing. Now, it's not unusual for them to hire a contractor or an outside person. Exactly the same with MI6. The difference is with the CIA, the COS or chief of station will have the discretion to hire that person and not have them on the books. They will be completely soft filed. And there will just be somebody who's working off the books, and that allows for plausible deniability. So this is it's a standard thing. So they would hire somebody like me, and they would give me a kind of like an indication of like, we'd like you to do this, or we'd like this to happen, or whatever the case may be. MI6, on the other hand, they don't have that same plausible deniability thing in place. If you're so much as hired as a painter and decorator to paint the front door of the property they're hiring from, you will be given a P number by MI6 from Vauxhall Cross. Everybody who's ever worked, will work, does work, and has worked for MI6 all have that P number, and everything they've done and everything they do is all recorded. So you do have these agencies all around the world, and brokers as well, that will hire contractors to do this kind of work all around the world, and therefore, you don't necessarily have to be in MI6 to work for MI6 or in the CIA to work for CIA. So it doesn't necessarily make you a spy, but you are working in the intelligence industry as a contractor, and that's what I actually spent a lot of my life doing before I was actually on the books or doing anything else.
Yeah, there's lots of different flavors of it, no doubt. And Brian's got a good question. So, have any of the agencies you've been associated with ever let you down, where you were very disappointed, you to the point of disgust, Robin and Gavin? Sure.
No.
Sure. Most of my own.
I'm not going to say which ones. It'll burst the bubble.
It's interesting too, because it's rarely organizationally as much as it's individually, because everything comes down to relationships. And I've worked with tons of great organizations and great people. Do you ever disclose to the government who you're dating when it's a new relationship? I don't know. I've been married for 30 years, so I was already married when I came in the bureau. So not for me. How about you, Gav?
No, I've never had to. But I know there are a lot of not so much rules, but there are kind of guidelines more so than rules in place when.
Well, yeah, us you do. So us you have to report your roommates.
Yeah. And so any kind of major change in your circumstances, or I think there's a little bit of, and again, it probably changes from agency to agency, but there's lots of clauses of kind of if you've only just started dating someone, then it doesn't really matter. But if it's getting serious, and of course, I was living with my wife before we even considered getting serious. We were living together and still weren't officially seeing each other. We'd lived together 6 months and we're like, yeah, we're not together.
I love this question. Best other agencies you've worked with? Well, now I'd have to say I love the king. We loved the queen. Working with MI5 and MI6 was fantastic. Matter of fact, I would go out of my way to find joint operations I could collaborate on. I loved working and collaborated with 5 and 6 just because they were very like-minded with us in the bureau on the counterintelligence side. Fantastic. I did a lot with the Aussies and CSIS in Canada as well. I've never had a bad experience working with other agencies that were non-US based. It's been fantastic. And the other one I thought was good too. Ever dressed up like a woman? No.
No, not for the job.
Nah, not in my wheelhouse.
No, not yet. So, what was the other? So, best other agencies you've worked with? I mean, I love working for the Americans because they're just a lot more open than the Brits. The Brits are very. I don't know. It's kind of there's a lot of paperwork. I mean, I know obviously for anybody in this industry, there's tons of paperwork anyway. But the Brits are so anal about and rigid about so many things. And when it comes to working with the Americans, I just find you guys just to be a bit more flexible in your approach. And it's like kind of, I could come to you and say, look, an extra day here could change everything. And whereas the British just say, no, we finish on Friday, we're out, we're done. The Americans go, right, one day, is it going to make that much of a difference? You go, yes, it really will. And they go, okay, have that extra day. And
I always think organizations put the best foot forward when working with the other outside organizations, because I can say exactly the same thing from the reverse side. So I think, before we engage a partner to do anything, we get everything we need in line to be as flexible as possible to accommodate them, because we're very grateful for that. And so I think it goes both ways, because I found working with other organizations outside the U.S. to be so much more flexible and loose with money than ours.
Yeah.
So I think it's always that way, is that, hey, if you're always trying to be the best host you can.
Yes,
and so it's, I have never had a bad experience working with a foreign partner. I've really enjoyed every one of them. I had a chance to travel around the world with defectors and stuff, sharing them with other partners and NATO partners as well. It's always been a really rich experience.
For the record, it was a Mr. and Mrs. competition. We were on stage.
So lie detector tests and psychological tests. For the bureau, it's every 5 years. We're putting on the box for standards. Our clearances that would be renewed every 5 years. If you're on a special case, you might get it up to sooner than that. On the psych testing, if you are in an undercover capacity, every 6 months, you do a checkup from the neck up, they call it. And they baseline you on your personality and all the tests before you enter an undercover operation. Then every 6 months, they assess you to see if you're deviating from that baseline at all.
Yeah, and random ones as well. I don't know if you had that, but I did.
Say again?
There was random ones as well.
Yeah, sometimes.
In my experience, just like any other workplace, there will always be that exactly the same kind of
bureaucracies are bureaucracies. Stress is stress, and the results of human behavior are all the same. Although I will tell you, though, the Aussies are probably the craziest people I've ever met. They were just nuts, more nuts than anyone else.
Revisiting that really quickly, John, it's kind of a bit weird that the same organization that taught me to beat a polygraph test were the people who used to use a polygraph test on me to see if I was like, so kind of crazy there. So, can you say who the Aussie agencies are? No, oh, right, okay. So, all part of what used to be Five Eyes. I think it's Nine Eyes at the minute, isn't it?
Is it really?
Yeah, I think we're up to Nine Eyes at the minute, but it's basically all the allied. You got like New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and all the allied nations and whatever. So, I've not actually been to Australia either, which is I've got that many friends and family out there. You know, in fact, I believe isn't it Australia Day today?
I don't know.
Yesterday for them. So, but yeah, I think it is. So, I might be wrong. I'm sure I saw a post on social media saying it was Australia Day today.
Every day should be Australia Day.
We should have a barbecue. What's masses wanting to see? Oh no, that's it. My Facebook's going to blow up later. They're all going to be searching through the old photos to see me when I did that Mr. and Mrs. competition. So, dear, that was a long time ago.
Yep, Aaron, totally agree. Polygraph's a tool. It's a prop. A great interviewer uses it as a prop and not as a go-to because it measures physiological responses to stress indicators. Yeah. I've known people that have failed it that never lied a day in their lives because they have guilty conscience about everything they've ever done. And then I've had people that were lying sacks that could beat it because they believed their own lies. It's a tool.
Yeah, it's no more effective than my watch. I could literally turn around and say my watch will tell me if you're lying or not. It measures the physical, like what Robin said. It measures those physiological changes that if you're paying enough attention, you can see anyway. You don't need a machine to say, goes hyperventilating or the guy. So it helps to a degree, but it's. Yeah, like what Robin said, you get people who fail it because they're nervous, and
Sam, I have a very, very good friend that could not pass it after he already got in the bureau, and so he had to go work something else. And he was the most honest person I ever met. He had what he called Catholic guilt. He just thought, I remember his answer to everything was he thought every single question was so important that he stressed every single question, so he spiked on everything. And I'm like, dude, if I pass the polygraph, anyone can, because I rode the gray line with everything we did.
Oh wow, yeah. Here we go. Right, so I'll let you go first, and then I'll mention a couple that I'm kind of aware of.
So I did consume a little bit of the Americans just because I got asked that question a decent amount. I thought the first episode was okay. After that, it went pretty sideways. And here's where it really went sideways. So I did work the case called Ghost Stories, which that's loosely based on, which is the 10 Russian illegals that were caught in the States years ago. I was on the behavioral team that did that. I was actually headquarters. I was really close to this case. Wasn't the case agent. There's a few of them on it, but I was definitely involved. What's interesting about when you watch the Americans is the people, the individual that I remember that they brought in because he was a senior agent that worked criminal work, and they brought him in to really solve this counterintelligence problem. No. It is a wholly different discipline to work in the world of counterintelligence, which is 100%. If you're doing it well, it's a proactive entrepreneur endeavor where you're trying to prevent everything by being out in front and guessing where the bad guys are going to go and hit to be there first. Everything else is reactive. And so it's a really different mindset. The people that work it and do a good job of it have a lot of ego suspension, let go of your vanity, all your sense of superiority. Because remember, you're trying to do two things when you're trying to recruit an intelligence officer, spy, whatever you want to call it. You have to solve a pain point in their life, and then they have to trust you not to get them killed and their families killed along the way. So you have to have humility with confidence. You have to be able to read and be able to assess nonstop their psychological, physiological, and mental comfort with you and the situation and feelings of safety. And if you can't provide that nonstop every moment of every day, as well as solve the priorities and pain points in their lives, you're not going to do it. That is a skill set that not a lot of people can do. And you're constantly being a student of it as well. Matter of fact, I met with, again, I told you in my books, his name is Jesse Thorne, my Jedi Master, for dinner last night. And we were talking about this, and he got mad at me last night because I give him so much credit. And I said, this individual that was my mentor and guide, and during the course of his career, he recruited 14 intelligence officers, which is profound. This one individual, unbeknownst to anyone else in the world, had a greater impact on the national security of the United States and our NATO allies than anyone I've ever known of in my entire life, because of the amount of information he's garnered and gathered. And he got angry at me last night. He goes, I got to really disagree with you on this. This was not me. It was a team. And I said, you're right. I get you. I said, but remember, you were the single point of failure, were you not? And he goes, all right, fair. You organized it. You were running it. Yes, it was a team, but yes, you were the single point of failure.
Yeah, so I did watch. I think it was season 1 of The Americans. I love the concept of it. So for those of you, you may have heard of old back Detrick, better known as Jack Barsky.
Good friend.
I'm going to say I hope his real name's out there.
Yeah, Jack Barsky.
Yeah,
his real name's on Aldrich.
Aldrich Detrick. Yeah, so yeah, so it's common knowledge.
Oh yeah. Yep. It's in his book. It's in his book.
Okay, that's good.
In fact, I'm seeing Jack tomorrow. So Jack, me, and Dan Hoffman, we do a thing at the Joint Counterintelligence Training Center every couple of weeks, and we sit on a panel. So I see Jack again tomorrow.
Oh, brilliant! Oh, wow! So, that'd be something.
We should have. I can have him on the show.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah,
sure.
Please. So next week we've got someone coming on for next
couple
week.
weeks. I'll have Jack come on.
Brilliant. So John Johnson, if you like The Americans, Jack Barsky was the real world version of The Americans. He was deep cover based here in the United States, and he basically was living the role that you saw in The Americans. So there you go, brilliant Jack Barsky. So that'd be fantastic to have Jack.
Yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah,
brilliant. So we got John's put bring Jack on. So yeah, brilliant. Right, please everybody hit that subscribe button so that you know and get the notification for when we're getting Jack to come on, and hit the like. That'd be absolutely brilliant. That's been a surprise for me. So in not next week, but the week after, come back and join us, and we'll have.
Yeah, let me check when he's available.
Yeah,
he just
we'll confirm it.
Good guy. And so just a plug for his book. It's not just I'm not a spy book reader. What's really great about his book, it's a history book. So kind of a primer for everyone. Jack was recruited by the KGB, living in East Germany at the end of World War II. That's when he grew up. He grew up in East Germany at the same time Putin was born and grew up in that area. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of similarities. His indoctrination into that mindset was you're always a product of the information you're either consuming by choice or not choice. And that's what his indoctrination was for all those years until he was trained as an undercover operative by the KGB. Mm-hmm. He came over to the United States and slowly he became Westernized and Americanized until the point where he decided he didn't want to go back. And they tried recalling him. They said his life was in danger. And I'll let him tell you the funny way he got out of it. Very imaginative. It was the early 80s when he finally decided not to go back.
Yeah. We'll definitely keep that one. We'll save that one because I love hearing the story.
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant. The Americans, when it comes to approximates the true life of a spy. Oh, okay. So there's different shows that have different aspects. I don't think there's any one show that gets it smack on because at the end of the day, there's a lot of poetic license. It's like so many things. Life isn't like what it is on the movies. It's not non-stop action like in 24 or whatever. So if you wanted to know Tradecraft, for example, then the TV show to watch is probably something like Burn Notice. Burn Notice was actually, they did have a CIA officer come in, and a lot of the stuff that they teach on there is pretty damn accurate to things like bluff calling and that kind of thing, and how they operate. That's probably one of the best for how to affect tradecraft in everyday life. For things like probably the BBC program Spooks gives a little bit of a reality side of it, and again, it's MI5 based TV show. It's not as constantly action packed as that, but it does give an idea into the life of what happens in a lot of the intelligence officers and their surroundings. At the minute, I think there's a season 1 of something out called The Recruit. you're either going to love it or you hate it. It's comedy. I watched a couple of episodes of it. A lot of the terminology they're using is accurate. A lot of the things that you see within the CIA headquarters, the continuity is really, really good and really, really accurate. There's lots of little things, lots of little nods, even down to like the donut shop and things like that are all in there over at Langley. So there's lots of really good things in there. But remember, it's comedy. Okay, so it's so there's things like that which have all the like the continuity is good, but it's a comedy. You've got things like Burn Notice, which is kind of the Tradecraft's good, but it's an action program. So these explosions that you see all the time, these kind of things, that they're not usually the way things are. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've all been in situations of danger, no two ways about it. But remember, poetic license. So yeah, what we got?
Perry has some good questions. First, for our civvies in the chat, we're here because fascinated by spy culture. How does awareness of the stories influence how you live your life? I don't pay attention to any of it. When it's your lifestyle, it's your job. I always, it's human interaction. When you understand the core of what's going on, whether you're working in a spy world or whether you're trying to sell a product or service, it's all the same thing. That's why everything I do is around trust. Matter of fact, my second book, Code of Trust, is literally the story about when I realized what I was doing running my behavioral team in every single spy operation, we were strategizing trust. And so that became my understanding of trust. And what's trust based on? It's based on openness, transparency, and vulnerability. And so those are my bedrocks for everything. That's who I was my entire life. And so it's taking that and bringing it up to the service even more, because someone has to trust you with their lives. What's the other one? Portrayals, spy culture, like joining other agencies. I had no idea about this world. I knew James Bond. When I got to New York, I had no idea what I was going to do in the FBI. I showed up to my first squad. So in New York, you go through rotation, and it's about 3 to 6 months before you get assigned your permanent squad. I had no idea where I was going to be. I was at firearms one day. You're qualified 4 times a year with our firearms. I had a Marine Corps baseball hat on. I had a senior guy on my one side and another senior guy on the other side. They looked at me and said, "You former military?" I go, "Yeah, I'm former Marine." He goes, "Why don't you try to come to our squad?" I go, "What do you do?" And he goes, "We recruit Russian military intelligence officers." I go, "What's that?" And so that was my introduction, and they told me about the squad. They told me about what they did, and that sounded pretty damn cool. And I had good timing, and I got on, and there you go. The rest was my history for the next 22 years.
Brilliant. It was good for me in the sense of, because I wasn't recruited in the traditional sense. I never got like the tap on the shoulder at Eton and said, would you like to come and work with the boys? Because it was a very gradual thing for me. I did it all backwards. So I started off in a world of like kind of surveillance. That went on then to investigations. That went on to kind
of. You did the dangerous stuff.
Yeah, it was all good. It was all fun. There's that word again. And then of course, so there's upsides and downsides to both of this, because being a contractor, you get nothing in the way of protection. There's no Excel, there's nobody coming for you, there's no backup, there's no nothing. And at the same time, even though the pay's good, the treatment's crap, and so you're pretty much disposable.
You're a screwdriver.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, when I was going through the whole thing and going into and learning how this world works, it was great, because as I'm going to like take another step further into the industry, it'd be like, so that's how that works. So it's not like 007. Okay, that makes sense. That's a lot safer. So there was lots of things that kind of because there is a lot of misconceptions when you watch the likes of Mr. and Mrs. Smith or things like that.
Good.
And you're under the impression that it's a world full of highly skilled, highly trained, perfect at everything, kind of knowledgeable geniuses who are capable of doing all sorts.
Well, thank you very much.
With gadgets that can do anything, and that you can seduce any lady on the planet, and kind of and do and it's not the way it is. What the truth of the matter is they want somebody who's good at good at everything rather than great at one thing or great at a couple of things.
And everyone kind of gravitates towards what their skill set is. On my squad, we had people like, I love the human interaction aspect of it. I tried to flourish in that because that's where my skill set was. And I tried to get much better at that. We had people that were really technically proficient. They were phenomenal at doing that. We had some that were really good at investigation. So I was kind of, someone bashing Tom Cruise. I love Tom Cruise. So everyone had their skill set and area of expertise, and that they enjoyed, that became a natural part of who they were. And when you combine them all together, that made for a great team, because not every one person can do everything really well.
So I'm gonna bring this up by Brian. Is Mossad Is Mossad as ruthless and proficient as it's said to be?
They're a pain in the ass.
What I found with Mossad, they are brilliant. If there's one thing they cannot be faulted on, it's their compartmentalization. They literally will have one man over here investigating something and another man over here investigating something that's linked.
And relentless
information from him and him, but neither of them will know each other. It's just absolutely brilliant in that respect. Where Mossad have had the advantage over so many years is the fact that there is a huge Jewish community network all over the world. So it's very, very easy for somebody from Mossad to land in town.
Freak.
I know, yeah. I'm gonna get into trouble here. So yeah, somebody from Mossad, they can fly to anywhere, like, whether it be New York, London, anywhere in the world where there's a big Jewish community, and say, hey, what's going on? And because of the loyalty, within the Jewish community, they will say, this is happening, that's happening, so there was a constant free flow of information. They had this Jewish network all over the world where they had access to pretty much everything that was going on and help from within their own network. So they had a very long reach and kind of a lot of control and a lot of, I don't know, kind of not so much influence, but like ability to be able to get to areas that certain other people would find it more difficult to infiltrate.
And in my experience, were the rules they play by are their own rules. They are non-discerning when it comes to recruit. They will recruit every human being that crosses their path, regardless of if you're a friendly service or not. It is just a pain in the ass. Good at what they do. Relentless is a good word for them.
Yeah.
And I had a great opportunity. I went to went to Israel in 2005 on a liaison with Shin Bet, hosted by Shin Bet, and then the Mossad as well. A great host, fantastic. It's the most informative thing I've ever seen in my entire life was how good at what they do. My only advice to everyone after that trip was never, ever try to spy inside of Israel. You're done within seconds. They had everyone so wired. It was crazy.
I was actually in Israel a few months ago with a Russian military officer who I've made good friends with.
Oh, really? You were in Israel with that?
I was.
They're all over you. Then I'm guarantee it, man.
Everyone's all over me. I don't care. I'm at the point where I got back from Israel and I put the photos on Facebook. I'm at that point where I don't care now. I'm not. There's nothing to hide.
They probably beat you to it.
Yeah, so because at the end of the day, you know as well as I do, if it's on your phone, if it's on your laptop, if it's stored somewhere, pretty much everyone's got access to it.
And they own it. They own everything over there. It was just, and this is 2005, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, and it's even and the technology they've got just getting in there now is just awesome.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's probably a story for another day anyway. So yeah, right. There was another question I spotted a minute ago. Where was it? No, I'm not going to put that one on about Tom Cruise. No, I might have missed it. No, lost it. Really sorry if. Yeah, missed the question. I apologize. So yeah, what else can we share? How are we doing for time? We're over the hour. I'm really sorry. Bloody hell, that happened a lot faster than I expected.
I told you it'd be fun.
Yeah, it was fun. Right, if you would like a part 2 to this, please put a number 2 in the comments. Let us know, because that seemed, for me anyway, it seemed to happen very, very quickly. So just write the number 2, and we'll come back and have another go at this. Maybe get Lena involved as well. It would definitely be great to have Jack Barsky come on board.
Having Jack in the second part will really be, that'd be fun.
Oh, it'd be great.
He literally he's lived multiple lives, and he's got multiple families to prove it too.
Yep. Oh, there we go. Our first 2 is coming. Yep. Number 2, please. Brilliant. Thank you. So we'll definitely. Here we go. They're coming in now. Yeah, we'll come back and we'll discuss more of this. We'll share a few secrets and go maybe a bit deeper into operations and some of the things we did during those operations. Some of the stories of things that have gone right, things that have gone wrong, and I'm sure I can see Robin's probably got about a dozen stories pinging his head.
Yeah, and my son remembers, he was 6. I think he's 5 or 6 years old. I was called out because I had my lookouts looking for one of these intelligence officers because they used to frequent a mall that I lived near in New York, and all of a sudden one weekend, I wanted to have an encounter with this guy, and all of a sudden one of our lookouts calls out and says he's on the way now. And I'm home alone with my son, and I say, "Hey, Kevin, you want to go work with Daddy right now?"
Wow.
And as the final story, have you ever seen, and they do this now and then, you can see where people aren't really paying attention who they're talking to, and if someone just takes their place, they totally miss out that the person's changed in front of them.
Yeah.
So what had happened was I had done a turnover. So the case agent that was handling this intelligence officer before me had moved. And so I adopted this, but this case agent had already met this intelligence officer in an undercover capacity. And we had a great opportunity to continue this relationship, but the case agent's gone. He's moved. And so what I did was I became him. I bumped into him at the mall and I said, "Hey, remember me?
Wow.
Here's my little boy." And he said, "Yes, I remember you." It was total flip.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my son got to be, my son still remembers that to this day, he said.
Oh, wow. Awesome. We have, there it is, change blindness. Yeah. Thank you, John Johnson.
Yes, change blindness. Yeah, it was exactly what it was, Sonny. Change blindness. I've actually used it on an operation and it worked. Hilarious.
Wow, love it. Oh, yeah, we will definitely have to come back and do a number 2 then. So thank you to everybody who joined us tonight. It's been fun, especially with me going back through some of my kind of memories of things that I've done and experiences. So yeah, thank you for everybody for joining us. We will come back. We'll tell you a lot. I've got probably about a dozen or more stories that came to my mind just by saying things that have
Isn't
gone
that
right.
fun? These are the stories because I didn't write about any of these in the books I've ever written, and I literally came up because someone asked me about undercover ops a couple days ago on a podcast, and I was like, "Poof!" Actually, it was actually an internal bureau. That's what it was. I was doing an internal thing for the FBI, and someone asked me about going through undercover school, and I was like, "Oh!" And all of a sudden, I was flooded, and that's when the same time I was like, "What are we going to do this week?" I said, "Let's talk about this."
Yep, that's it. Yeah, I think it was me because unfortunately Lena had to pull out this week, which was a shame. So Robin and I were like, right, what we're going to do, and that was when Robin said, "Let's just do undercover." I was like, okay.
See, Helen, you say that, but why don't you come on the podcast? See, I open up that up, so if anyone, we should do this sometimes. I've wanted to have Sam on. We have some fantastic, people in our tribe. We should just do a night where, we do an open mic and we just do an interview.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm actually Helen is petrified. She actually said when we go over to Denmark, I'll mark it on the calendar. Oh, you can see it from there. Marked it on the calendar to come over to Denmark and meet you guys. And she's like, "Don't leave me alone with Robin. Don't leave me alone with Robin." I'm like,
so Helen, I'll tell you right now what the question will be. I love one opening question. So, what was the spark that inspired you to want to marry Gavin?
I think it was probably more of a bubble than a spark, possibly several bubbles, and ice and a straw, and
it all starts with that one question.
Yeah. So I'm going to deliberately kind of place her somewhere in Denmark and say, "Robin, sit and have a conversation with Helen." I'm just going to walk away and leave her. So no, she's terrified. She's like, "You can see into your soul." But yeah, no, it'd be kind of cool to get her on one night. It's bad enough having her in the chat, but I might risk it and bring it on, but only if you bring your wife on too. How about that?
Now mine's downstairs watching her murder mysteries.
Yeah, I probably don't want to be the star of one of those murder mysteries, so I better not better not push
Sounds
that then.
good.
Brilliant. Right then, thank you everybody. Absolutely brilliant. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe, like it, share it to your friends, invite. Let's keep growing it and getting it bigger. I'm trying to build it up and get it over the 1,000. So we're getting closer every week. We're up to 700 and something this week. So. So thank you very much for coming. Have your questions ready for next time. We've got a surprise guest from Australia. Funnily enough, that's going to be with us next week. We'll probably be in TCG Tribe next week. So if you're not on the TCG Tribe in Facebook, come on over, join us over there. And then the week after, Robin and I will be back here, hopefully with Lena. And if we can get Jack on as well, that'll be absolutely brilliant. So
we will have him on at some point. We're just not sure when yet, but yeah, definitely will.
If not, then Robin and I will. I'll definitely come back and we'll do a round 2. So there seems to be the demand there for it. So brilliant. Thank you, everybody. Good night. See you again soon.